Men rising up to end the silence around us about the chains that bind us, to dispel the darkness of illusion with luminous spiritual technologies, to finally become the hero within us all. My name is Karuna Avatar Das, and with me is my dear co-host Jai Jagannath, as well as the lovely sisters Syama and Dhyana Masla. Welcome, ladies. It's so wonderful to have you with us. This is actually quite historic since it's the first time that we have female voices on the show. So we're really, really enlivened, and we're so happy that you're here with us today. So just, as an opener, for the vast majority of guys aiming to set themselves straight in life, there's no inspiration more powerful than the presence of a noble and worthy lady in his life. So since we figured, since we had those two upstanding gentlemen, Vera and Jai, on the show 3 weeks ago to discuss conscious relationships, we thought that it would be most fitting to invite you ladies, their wives, Syama and Dhyana, to get the female perspective. So we're so happy that you're with us.
Everyone's so excited to hear this side, and that was part of the reason why we invited you guys on, because it was like, in order to protect ourselves from accusation of sexism and misogyny, we should hear the complete side. That's a joke, by the way, so everyone can laugh now. The real reason we wanted you on is because after hearing from Jai and Vera, we got the inspiration that this should be like a regular installment on the show about conscious relationships. And I know many power couples in our devotional communities who would really offer wonderful wisdom and insight to how to have conscious relationships, which could be really useful for those navigating those waters and trying to establish such conscious relationships. So that was how we got inspired. I was like, okay, let's hear the ladies' voices immediately. That was like the first thought that came. And so yeah, we want to hear your side of the story. But before we get to your side of the story, just a quick personal experience with you guys. As I mentioned, when Jai and Vera, the Bhakti Center was a very powerful space for a short period of time in the last decade, largely due to two power couples, Vera and Dhyana and Jai and Syama. They were largely responsible for a period of just efflorescence in the Bhakti Center like it had not seen ever before. Super inspirational. By the time I got to the Bhakti Center, I was just like basically eating prasad, getting the mercy of something that was already built up for a period of time. And it was largely due to the influence of these two ladies and their husbands. And so they have very powerful potency for creating spaces for developing really wonderful, loving communities, and therefore would have a lot of wisdom to offer just in that area. But one of the areas which you guys also were very good at doing in the Bhakti Center, from my observation, was helping give clarity and guidance to other couples also. And so we wanted your wisdom on this. We wanted your wisdom on this. That's why we have you guys here today. Thank you so much for agreeing to be here on the show with us. I think I always like to start the episodes with like a philosophical question. But before we get into that, Karuna Avatar, he had another question about you all's relationship. So why don't you ask that one first?
Yeah. I just wanted to know, have you guys always gotten along so well? Like, how has it been over the span of your lifetime? And like, what are your major similarities and also your major differences?
Syama, do you want to go first, or do you want me to?
I thought you could go first.
Okay. Somehow, I think that even we are taken aback by it, but our destinies are so intimately intermingled in this life. And I mean, from being developed in the same womb to going to school as we were young in Gurukulas, like 2 grades were merged, and so we ended up being in the same grades, even though we're almost 2 years apart, and having the same circles of friends. And yeah, we were always we've always been best friends. We went to massage school together. We both moved to Boulder and went to college together. We started our yoga training and retreat business together. We moved to New York City together. We met best friends and started dating them together. We all moved in together. We've done so much together. We got pregnant together. We
got initiated together.
And so it's pretty like wow, like we couldn't have planned all of this. And so it's definitely a divine relationship. And I think because we're talking about relationships, it's like yes, we've always gotten along. I think that our relationship to us has been an example of what it means to love unconditionally and to always come back. Because like my sister, she's been such a foundation of loving care that no matter what's happening in my life or what I'm going through, like when push comes to shove, like she's there for me and she loves me no matter what. And of course we get into things. I think all relationships, people think like, oh, this relationship is perfect because what they see on social media or this or that. But all relationships, there's going to be times and moments. And I think what I've learned from our relationship is that everything is possible if there's commitment, and we're committed to each other.
Syama, would you like to say anything more? I have to say, Dhyana, I also had that experience coming to Bhakti Center. Although not knowing Syama very well, when she would talk to me, I felt like I could reveal like anything to her without judgment. And I was a little taken aback because I don't talk to girls a lot of the time. I'm like, I don't think there's anything as friendship between men and women. Anyway, I'm slightly joking, but I had that mentality a little bit. So I was always taken aback how open I felt I could be around Syama when I first came to Bhakti Center. Mm-hmm. Anyway, just throwing that out there. I definitely experienced that.
Oh, thank you. That's an honor, Jai Jagannath. You're always reminding me of my stepbrother, Priya. So I feel like very comfortable with you. Yeah. But also, I have to say, when you came to the Bhakti Center, it also, I was like, oh, wow, he's so cool. Like, he's bringing the Bhakti Center to the next level. That's how I felt when you came. And the whole kirtan scene, of course, like you and Janavi and the Tuesday night kirtan crew. But sorry, I was getting off topic.
I don't know if you wanted to say anything more to the sister bond.
Yeah. Like Dhyana said, somehow our life, it wasn't even, I think that we were always, we always chose to do these things together because we love spending time together and being together. And I would often joke that Dhyana makes going to the grocery store an adventure. And I can't say that about a lot of people, but like when we do anything together, it feels like we're going on an adventure together. It could really be as simple as the laundromat. So everything that she said is wonderful. And there's definitely highs and lows, and what she said, just coming back and beyond the stories, just trying to stay committed to our relationship.
All right, now let's get into the meat of the topic here. We're going to start off with this question. I think Prabhupada is attributed to saying this. In the West, they marry the girl that they love. And in the East, they love the girl that they marry. And so like the emphasis is a difference between like love as the primary informant of a relationship versus like a duty or a responsibility. How do you see this statement, and how do you see this statement by itself in its own right? And how do you see this statement in terms of your own relationship with your husbands? Mm-hmm. Like what do you think was maybe the main motivating factor, or any insight about that?
Syama.
So, I grew up watching so many romantic movies and videos like most of us had. And I had this vision of what it meant to fall in love and to get married. And all I was basing it off of was those movies, basically. So at the same time, I also I heard a quote at the beginning of our relationship that love is grown. Was that it, Dhyana? Like love takes time, or I can't remember. Do you know what I'm talking about? That quote? Never mind. So I heard something that really made an impact that, you have to commit in order to actually love. And I liked the sound of it. So I thought, I'm going to try that on. And I think it's a balance of both. Of course, growing up in the West, we want to have a bit of that love. But in the East, the commitment and growing into love, I think actually now being married in a relationship for 9 years, married for 7, that I really like that perspective a lot, that love does grow. And I would tell often now when people ask me advice about relationship, like if they're just not feeling it at the beginning, I was like, that doesn't matter actually. Like you might not feel it, but if this is someone that you admire and that you have shared values, like love grows for sure. And I can say that. I mean, the first time I saw Jai, of course, I was like, oh, he's really cute. And like, I remember telling Dhyana, like, I would like to marry somebody like him. And I had no idea it was actually going to be him. And I had no even like drive to like make it happen. That it really like that kind of just came to place. But I appreciated his qualities and his steadiness and his commitment to his spiritual life, and to Radhana Swami as our spiritual master, and all of those things. I was like, I want my life to go in that direction. So it wasn't necessarily that we fell in love even. It was just that we were both in a place in our life where we were like, yeah, let's take this serious. And we see the same direction that we want to live our life. And I feel like I love him much more now than I did then.
Syama, Jai made this really like funny statement when he was on the show. He said that, you know, he doesn't think that you actually really committed to him as being the guy, you know, until like a few years into the actual marriage, and then you were like, okay, you know, you were like really there. Like, what do you like? How is that? Like, is that so?
You get into some tea. Look at you.
Well, he said it, so I guess I can answer. And it's actually very true, because my nature, I'm a very loyal person, and when I make a commitment, I know it's like this is a big commitment. And Jai, when we got together, he was like, I want to marry you, like you're the one, let's get married. And I was kind of like putting on the brakes. I was like, no, slow down. But I also knew, like, my heart was like, yes, this is the person, and my intelligence was like, yeah, this is the person, but it was also so fast. So we got engaged quite quickly, and then we got married just a year later. And it just took me some years to actually catch up with the commitment. Not that I was being weird or frivolous in any way, like in that way, but it was just like, wait, I just got married. That happened really fast. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, for sure. But like, okay, so if you could, you like, can you imagine like a particular sort of a phase in time, or maybe a specific event, or like a moment in which you almost like consciously like really realized that you were fully there with Jai? Like, was there such a moment, or was it something that just kind of like gradually, more subtly kind of like came into your psyche?
I think it's the combination of just spending a lot of time together and really getting used to being with him. And then also, quite honestly, the release of old relationships. I think that these days, of course, you know, having had relationships before, and like I said, when I commit, I really commit. So it takes time to let go. So in one sense, I was still carrying those into my new relationship, and it just took time.
Yeah. Thank you, Syam. Thank you for being so. I really put you on the spot there, but thank you for just taking it in your stride.
Dhyana, same question. East versus West, and your own understanding of the statement, maybe, and your own experience in your relationship.
Yes, so much of what Syama said was resonating a lot with me. I definitely feel like if there's compatibility and connection, then love will deepen and grow. I think compatibility, connection, and commitment. Because like she was saying, so often these days we base our love, like we think love is, I'm feeling something. Like I feel this thing when I'm with this person, and I want to be with them forever because I want to feel this way forever. But we all know that feelings change, and that's why, you know, the divorce rate, I think it's almost 70% now. Wow. Because we base our love and thus our commitment to this person on something that I'm feeling, which inevitably it's going to change as the circumstances change. And so I think it's beautiful if it initially starts with a feeling, but I think it really has to be rooted in compatibility and genuine connection and a commitment to, okay, what happens when we don't feel this way? Because then I really believe that that's when love grows, because our hearts, like all our hearts want to do is love. But then there's all of these things that, you know, he says to me or he does this, and it makes it really hard to love him. And so it's like, how in those moments, if I'm committed, it's like, how do I show up and love him anyways? And it happens the other way around. And so for us, it's really like our commitment isn't to feeling something all the time, and our commitment isn't even to each other. It's this commitment to ultimately it's love, which means showing up and supporting each other and connecting to our true nature, which when we're connected there, that's just what we do. We love. And so it's really looking at the layers that keep us from loving, the situations or circumstances that make it really hard to love. And we're committed to that process together, awakening to the deepest love possible, which is ultimately the love that God has for us and that we can be instruments of in this world if that's the process. And so we really see our relationship as that. It's not that he makes me feel this way, or it's a real commitment to connecting to that deepest love possible, which can be experienced through each other if that's the journey we're on.
This is a similar question to this first one, but like a romantic versus a realistic picture of a relationship, or a marriage relationship specifically, but a relationship in general. I mean, like you, we all grew up with this, I'm going to say, I think it's garbage, like all these super unhealthy codependent relationships that are presented as love on the media that we consume. And I remember, this is a little bit embarrassing to share, but I'm going to share it. I remember being in New York. This is before my devotional life. I was training as a dancer in New York. And I remember sometimes after a dance class, legit walking 100 blocks, 50 blocks one way, 50 blocks the other way, thinking that I'm going to like bump into true love. And like when it happens, the leaves are going to fall, the music is going to come into my heart. It's like total illusion. And so because we grow up eating this illusion, so to speak, consuming this illusion for so many years, I would suspect a lot of our generations have a very romantic view of a relationship and not a very realistic one. And so when you got married, what was your experience of like moving from romance to reality? And how does someone navigate that transition so that they don't feel inspired to just divorce? Because I feel like a lot of people, when they move from the transition from romantic to realistic, and the realistic is usually very different than the romantic view of it, that's when they get the inspiration to just leave. I think you've already answered it partly, Dhyana, but just some more wisdom on that. When your own experience of moving from romantic to realistic and navigating that shock experience of like, oh wait, this is what it really is.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because I don't think it's like all of a sudden there's that shift and it just like never goes back. I literally feel like in the dating stage, there's tastes of both. There's romance and there's reality. When we get married, or engaged, there's like goes back and forth. And now in marriage, it's like also there's the moments like today where, our son is supposed to nap at 11:30 and he's not going to sleep, and Vera pulled his back out and isn't able to watch him. And we're like trying to navigate this really real situation that's not like, sweep me off of my feet and everything's going the way that I want it to go and everything's just perfect. It's like, no, like there's really real challenges in life that we have to face together. And then like, the next moment it can be that like we're feeling that loving energy as a couple, and it feels very romantic and sweet and like maybe like what you would see in a movie. And so it's kind of like every day it's something different, and it's not necessarily it was romantic before and now it's realistic. And I think a big part of it is to decide as a couple, what do we value and what do we want, and how do we show up for each other in those ways that can support those types of experiences. I think that's really important. Like even, there's that book, The 5 Love Languages, and like me, like my primary love language is quality time. And that's when when he's giving me quality time where he's very present with me, I feel that experience of love. Like it's easy to love in those moments. And his love language is touch. So as simple as like me taking his hand when we're going for a walk, or me walking by him and like touching his back, that allows him to feel that experience of love. And so I think like even for me, like touch, it's not that big for me. Like it's something that I don't do naturally, just because it's not something that like I need so much in order for me to feel love. But because I know that about him, how can I go out of my way to maybe go out of my comfort zone and just like touch him a little bit more, put my hand on his back a little bit more, hold his hand a little bit more, so that he can experience that feeling of being loved, and thus allowing love to flow more naturally. And so I think that's something that helps us to bring in the energy of what you call romance, which I think is just an experience of that love flowing very freely, which can be supportive even when life does like that realistic of like we're doing the dishes or doing the laundry or doing like our normal day-to-day duties. It's really seeing like what do we value, what do we want in our relationship, and how can we bring that to life, so that it's like, I mean, the word romance, it's not a word that I use often, and it's kind of cool to explore it a little bit. But it's like that energy that we see in the movies, like it's love being exchanged with each other, which is beautiful, you know, and it's maybe quote unquote fake because it doesn't show the other side as often. But I think that experience of romance, it's actually important to generate that energy in relationship, because you know, if it's an arranged marriage, it might not be there from the beginning. How do we generate it? How do we show up and bring that energy in a way that supports us in thriving?
Yeah, I think that's a super important point, that, you know, I think that there's this common expectation that romance is just like this spontaneous thing that just automatically arises, you know, in the relationship. Whereas especially when time goes along, Dhyana, you were saying that romance is something that really has to be consciously generated. You know, you really have to put like intelligence and effort, and like you need to have sensitivity about the other person's needs to really like be able to effectively generate romance. Like the experience of romance requires work. Yeah.
And one thing is like, it's actually so simple though. Like I think that word work it's a very masculine word, where I think like ease and grace, it's like, how can I serve this person in a way that makes them happy? You know, and if it feels effortful, it feels like not exciting necessarily, or it feels not romantic, or, you know, it's like, oh, like a relationship takes work, but actually it takes like showing up and living into the vision of our lives that we really want, which can be such a beautiful ease filled, like get out of my own ego, get out of my way. How can I show up for this person in a way that serves? Like as mothers now, it's like we've kind of experienced what that actually means and how to bring that same energy to our relationship. Because literally with our sons, it's like we will do anything to make them happy and make them feel loved, and, you know, make sure that they feel satisfied in life. And you know, it's said that love of a mother with her child, it's the closest love to the love that Krishna has for us, and that we're meant to be exchanging with each other. But how do we get in our own way? Wait, I want him to make me happy. You know, I want him to show up in the way that makes me satisfied. It's like we have all of these more self-centered desires that keep us from showing up in our relationship in a way that brings the energy that we're wanting to experience. And so how do we show up like that? Which when we can, it's actually harder not to than it is to show up in that way.
I think the use of the word work, thank you for pointing out, maybe more masculine thing. That may be just part of the masculine experience. It's a little bit more work. Syama, same question, just maybe your own experience, and I'm calling it navigating the threshold from a romantic view of marriage to a more realistic view of marriage or relationship. Dhyana kind of fused them. It's not, they're kind of both existing simultaneously. Yeah. We have a similar, but yeah, we want to hear your thoughts on this experience for yourself in navigating that threshold.
I do agree with Dhyana that you get tastes of both in each phase. And then as I was also listening and reflecting, I was thinking how To me, what's romantic, and this might sound weird, is commitment. Because like going back to the beginning is, yeah, if I'm not willing to commit to this person to go through the highs and the lows, then I don't really want that side of romance. Like to me, that seems so cheap and so shallow. So the experience of being like, hey, like I love you when you're like a total, you know, to me, and the opposite. That I don't know, that's so romantic to me. That's so
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful.
It gives like space for real, like Dhyana was saying, like real love.
Yeah.
And maybe at a younger age, yeah, the other sort of romance was very attractive. But at a certain point, and I think it was around the point where I was meeting with Jai, I was just kind of like heartbroken. And I was like, I don't want to do that again. I don't want to like fall in love with someone and go through the whole process and then like break up and be hard. I was like, I'm done with that. Like, so yeah, the reality of just really giving your heart to someone is romantic.
Syama, with your emphasis on commitment here, I think it's a really good time to just quickly bring up Balaram's question. You know, Dhyana, he was really appreciating, you know, how do you love someone when you're really, really upset with them? Like when you have those moments, how do you actually deal with it? For both of you.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's in those moments where it's not a love that you feel. It's, I think what Syama said, it's that commitment that like we know that we're going to be moving through this and there's a lot of growth and heartache that's going to come from it, but I'm not going anywhere. Where I think a more maybe immature experience of relationship is that I'm really, really angry at you and I don't know if I want to do this anymore. Like me and Vera, we've never once said to each other, like, I don't think that this is going to work. You know, because I think that in itself, it creates an unstable foundation in which to go deep. And so I think that we just know, and of course we get really upset with each other and annoyed with each other and frustrated with each other, but we know that it's not ever a make or break. It's always like, if I'm really upset with you, it means that there's work to do on both parts. Like I have some inner work to do, you have some inner work to do, and we have some work to do together to make sure that we can keep supporting each other. And I think the skill of conscious communication is huge. It's not something that we're all born knowing how to do. Quite the contrary. We've usually been modeled communication that's not effective and doesn't support the other person in becoming clear with what's going on inside of them and communicating it effectively so the other person can actually listen. But I know for us, like even just Vera really knowing the skill of conscious communication has worked wonders for our ability to come back to a place of love when it's not flowing, basically. And so I think conscious communication and commitment are two things that are just huge when inevitably those moments will come up in a relationship.
Okay. I'm interested because of the ethos of the age. Marriage is not a very popular thing anymore. I would like, as you were mentioning some statistic, it's upward now 50 or 70% divorce rate. Looks like divorce is even more popular than, you know, it's more popular than staying together. And like culturally speaking, because of the sort of media we ingest or consume, where it shows a lot of dysfunctional families or just families not working out, or women and men who are just like, you know, kicking it with each other. Like, I've seen like series where like in the first season, it's like this epic love. By the end of the first season, there's some problems. Second season, it's a new relationship. And then by the end of the series, every character has kicked it with every other character in the series. And that becomes the sort of template that people ingest in our ethos and even our devotional community. So I was curious in this, looking at marriage as a sort of rite of passage into adulthood, for most people, how have you noticed how you've changed as an individual before and after marriage? Because I feel like our generation, we aren't privy to the sort of wonderful transformation that takes place only by accepting a certain level of responsibility. But you've accepted that responsibility, so you must have experienced the privilege of that transformation on a personal level. And I'm curious to hear about that. And, you know, especially you can say, in a sense, you can share this with other girls who aren't married yet, who also watch the same digital media we've all grown up with, who also may have this template in their head that, yeah, I can just kick it with anyone, it doesn't really matter. And we're not going to criticize that in this episode, but I'm just interested, what they don't see is the privilege of a transformation. They don't know what that is about. And you must have seen it in yourself. So I'm curious about that. The transformation before and after marriage, and before and after children. Also, that's the next follow-up to that. But let's get before and after marriage first.
Shine, why don't you start?
Yeah, let's hear from Syama.
Well, I really believe that marriage and relationship is a practice. And I often think of it as a meditation practice. We learn in yoga and meditation that we have to always bring the mind back, bring the mind back, bring the mind back. So yeah, through the years, there's going to be, you know, the mind will do so many things, right? And just on the highs and the lows, just to come back to the relationship. And how have I changed before and after? Well, I feel, I mean, of course, I'm at a very different stage of life. When me and Jai got together, I think I was 25, and now I'm almost 35. So there's, of course, a different awareness of life at these different stages. But I feel like, yeah, I don't know if you guys aren't women, so I don't know if you have this experience, but I think most young girls dream about like their wedding day or who they're going to marry. And it's just kind of like an energy that's always there. Like, who am I going to marry, you know? And so just on a practical level, it's just so cool to not have that feeling anymore.
Yeah. And
then also, like, Jai has seen I think probably my really wonderful sides, and then also the complete others. And what he's done is he's really helped me work on my darker sides because he's seen them, and to put up with me and help me grow through those sides, I wouldn't have been able to do without him. And just his patience and commitment, that's a big word for me, I guess. His patience, his commitment, his loyalty, and his ability to just, say, let's keep growing. You know, like this isn't stagnant. It's not like we're married and that's that. Like this is an evolution of who we are. And I believe that marriage is here because most of us won't have somebody closer than a husband or a wife or an intimate partner. Of course, Dhyana and I have each other. But when you have someone so close to you, like I see, I'm just going to not talk about him. He sees my worst. He sees my worst. And if I don't have someone like him that's so close, seeing that every single day, then to the outside, I look like this really happy, positive, grateful person. I'm like totally into yoga and Ayurveda and I'm healthy and all these. So I look like that on the outside, but and I try my best to practice those things. But yeah, he sees the other sides too. And he's really helping me to become who I want to be.
Sweet. Dhyana.
Wow.
I mean, I feel like I can literally just say what she said. Like, same meditation and like relationship is a meditation. It's a practice. It's when the mind wanders, come back. When the mind feels like I'd be happier with somebody else that looked a little bit different, that had a little more money, that looks, it's like the mind just does what it does, and if we don't know the nature of the mind, then we follow it, and hence the divorce rate and all of this. And so relationship as the practice that when the mind wanders, bring it back. When the mind wanders, bring it back. And I think that what that develops is an experience of like more internal stability. So this, I feel like that's something that I feel is like that there's like maybe more of a connection to like a deeper undercurrent beyond the mind and like the glitter that shines in the distance. It's like, no, like I know where my real happiness comes from, and this relationship is supporting me and connecting to that source. And again, I feel like that's the commitment. That's what we're committed to together. That's the process. And so when both parties are committed to that, then it's deep. It's deep.
I'm hearing one thing that's sticking out for me is the internal stability. is something, and it's something that you've experienced yourself on a personal level, and something that your partnership has also brought about in you, which is something I feel that a lot of our younger generation we like don't know that and may never know that because we're afraid of this sort of commitment. One of the things that, same question, but before and after children. A lot of women today, the whole notion of having children, anyway, it's been framed in really funny ways now. Like being a mother and bearing children has been framed in our modern secular world as not the most positive thing. As a sort of form of patriarchal oppression tactic or whatever it is. And I imagine that a lot of women may actually, in fact, think that way. They grew up in that culture. How could you not if that's what you're always hearing? But I know with guys, like I talk to my friends who've had children, and the vast majority of guys that I've talked to that have kids, before they had kids, they were like, no, I don't want kids. I'm not about that life. And then after having kids, they're like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I'm kind of interested in the transformation that you may have saw within yourself before and after children, which is something that's becoming more rare in communities today as well. People are getting married, but they're not having children for whatever reasons, good or bad. But what is that? Yeah, share that experience also on how wonderful it is to be a mother and have children.
Yeah, I've gotten quite a few messages from women who are like, I never wanted to have kids because I've always seen people complaining about having kids. But then to see, like my sisters and my page, like we share a lot about how much we love it. And so to see that transformation is really beautiful. And I kind of want to speak on two levels, if it's okay. One, like the transformation that I've seen in myself, but also in our relationship.
Yes.
It's really important to speak about.
Definitely.
Like one, I can't imagine having a child in a dysfunctional partnership. I don't know how that would work. And I know that there are many mamas out there that struggle with that. And that's probably maybe why there's a lot of mamas that don't enjoy being a mom. Because there's so many dysfunctional relationships in our world right now where you don't have the support of your partner, whether it be like literally, but also emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And so I'd say before considering to have a child, like pour energy into your relationship, making sure that you're deeply committed, communicating, and really just trying to be a conscious partner. I think that's just kind of like the foundation I want to start with.
Nice.
But for me, I think this happened in relationship with my husband, but in a bigger and deeper way in my transition into motherhood was the journey of becoming a lot less selfish. I think before getting into a relationship, it was all about what I wanted, when I wanted, how I wanted. And it's like, then when I got into a relationship, it's like, oh, I have to run that by you. Like, what do you mean you want me to just like buy a plane ticket and go somewhere? Like, limiting my experience of life, because I think commitment feels very limiting to people. Like you might not want that, but I do. And so how do we go into that realm of, and that's actually where we begin our journey of trusting each other. Like, not that like, if he thinks it's not a great idea that I fly across the country tomorrow, like, why are you trying to limit me? It's like moving from this place of like, oh, he genuinely wants what's best for me, and so beginning to explore that realm of, I feel like real trust is when I trust that you have my best interest in mind. It's not just that you're selfish and you don't want me to go because you're going to be lonely, but you genuinely feel like that's not what's going to be best for me. And so I feel like that's when trust begins to develop, is when we can begin to see that, like, oh, he genuinely wants what's best for me. And then, like, naturally, it's not like this thing that's limiting to me, but I want to go to him and be like, what do you feel about me flying cross country tomorrow? Because I trust that it's not just a selfish motive, whatever comes from him. And so then, like, naturally it evolves into like, yeah, we're doing life together and my choices affect him and vice versa. And we want to come together to get the other perspective. And then I think when our little guy came in, it's amazing, because oftentimes I've heard that as soon as your little one comes out, all the pain of labor goes away and you're exploded with the most incredible love you've ever experienced. I didn't experience that. The first thought I had when he was born was, why does it still hurt? That was the first thought I had. And then I was like, who are you? Like, I don't even like know who you are. And so it wasn't like, oh my God, I love you. I want to give everything to you. And I was a little bit confused about that experience. And what I realized over the next few days of reflection was it wasn't this feeling of like, oh my God, I love you. But the feeling was like, I would do anything for you. Like it's moving right now. Like I would do anything to protect you. I would give everything that I have away if it meant like you're happy and you're alive. Like I would do anything for you. And so what was happening was like, and gosh, what a mama does in those first newborn days, it's, I mean, even now, it's like I haven't slept through the night in almost 2 years. Like we each wake up at least 4 times a night, sometimes 9, 11, to feed our little ones when they cry out for us. Like every moment of our life is a meditation and on our little ones. And in those moments, like you'd think that like, oh my God, he's waking up again. Oh my God, like you just hear in the middle of the night, mama, mama. And you're like, oh God, I just want to sleep. But it's like, no, what do you want? What do you want? How can I make you happy? How can I serve you? And so to get to experience that experience, like from the inside out, where it's genuinely, it's unmotivated, uninterrupted love. You know, that the closest thing to bhakti, that like Krishna has given mothers this experience, you know, that we can have. And I think if we have the background of a supportive partner and we're nourished enough, then we can dive into pouring that kind of love into our babies so that they can also have this deep experience of Krishna's love, you know, pouring through, being expressed through their mother. And so it's amazing. It's
wow.
Well, it's definitely hard because especially like when there's a live at noon and he's not sleeping and I'm the only one that can put him to sleep right now, you know, or it's like when I have other things to do, but he really needs me. So I think that's what makes it challenging. It's like when my mind thinks that things need to be different or I need to be doing something else besides being his mom. So that's when it can become stressful or I get a little bit anxious or it becomes hard. But when I can just be present with him, it's like, wow, what an opportunity we have to get to experience this kind of love from the inside out. It's wow, it's powerful.
Wow.
Very
Syama, by all your smiles, I can tell that you're just like really deeply resonating with everything that your sister is saying. Right?
Yes.
Anything to add to that?
Or you can share your own experience of transformation, having a child before and after.
Well, yeah, I'm smiling because for sure she nailed the love meter all the way to the top. That's exactly what it feels like. And the journey into motherhood, of course, like a few months after Jayabai was born, COVID came, and then like huge life changes came, and then, you know, so much happened in such a short amount of time that I have to say that I'm kind of just catching up with the year and being like, oh wow, like that all happened and I'm okay. We're okay. But I think the initial transition, you know, being pregnant, I was pretty much just living my normal life in New York City, like running around. Like
that was impressive because I was watching you. I'm like, girl is moving like a footballer through the city. Like,
yeah, I mean, like my life didn't stop. Like I just kept teaching all my yoga classes. I was like running up 4, 5, 6 stories of stairs and down and going grocery shopping. You know, in New York, you have to carry all your like life was just exactly as it always was. And before having a baby, I kind of thought, you know how in New York City people have these cute little dogs they carry in purses? That's literally what I thought having a baby would be like. I was like, I'm just gonna go about my life. And, you know, I'll just carry my cute baby and like, I'll teach yoga and like, we'll do all these cool things. We'll go to lectures and we'll do this. And, you know, I'm just going to have my cute baby right there. And then the reality, I remember like I think it was the first day he was born. And I literally was like, oh my God, like I can't brush my teeth right now when I want to. Like, it was like a huge reality shock. I can't go pee when I want to anymore. Like, it was like all these basic things that I never ever considered a luxury. I just couldn't, I just had to do it around his schedule. Like if he's sleeping and he's sleeping on my arm, like I'm just going to lay here for 2 hours or, you know, so it was like a huge hit to my ego, huge. And not only that, it was like, you know, we have all this pressure, I think, maybe women particularly, I know men have different pressures, but yeah, to do it all, to have like a super successful career and to make money and to also be at home and cooking and to be a mom. And so I was feeling a lot of pressure. Like, who am I? Like, I don't have the time to do any of what I was doing 2 days ago before you were born. I just don't like, and it was really, it was scary and it was intense. And I feel like now, just over a year in, I my identity is like, yeah, now I've turned into a mother, where before my identity was so much on what I was doing. And of course, transitions take time, but it feels good to just be like, all I have to do now is love you. That's all I really have to do. And of course, I feel pressure if I'm like on social media, I'm like, oh, they're doing so much and they're doing such cool things and they're traveling and they're, you know, their business is thriving. And should I do all that too? And like Dhyana was saying, that's when being a mother is very stressful. Because it's like, okay, on top of being an amazing mom, I want to be an amazing career woman, and I want to travel the world, and I want to have a podcast, and I want to have this, you know, all these things. But when I can just be like, you know what, like your service right now is to love this person. It's so amazing. There's nothing better. And I feel like, yeah, for spiritual life, becoming a mother is like the bomb.
Thank you for saying that. I agree.
Yeah, because like Dhyana said, like, and even before, I was like, I never went to Mangala Artik and hardly even Guru Puja. And now I was like, oh my God, like I could rock Mangala Artik every single.
That's all we have to do.
Like, yeah, now I was like, how was I ever tired before? I don't even understand.
I had this experience growing up. I just want to clarify I agree with you, being a mother is the bomb, just because I'm scared I'm going to be seen as sexist, because I sometimes be putting up inflammatory statements on my Facebook page. But I want to say, this is a genuine experience growing up. When I was in the kindergarten, we had this assignment of drawing your heroes, like whoever your heroes are. And people were drawing like Batman and Superman and different sort of things. And I drew a picture of my mother.
Oh.
And I was like, she feed me, she take care of me, she put up with my nonsense. Like, that sounds like a hero to me. And I've always grown up with this image that a mother was like the greatest thing, almost one of the greatest attainments in society, because you're responsible for giving and shaping life. And so I just wanted to clarify that I resonate with being a mother is a bomb, and for spiritual life, that's where it's coming from, because my experience was like that, and my own personal appreciation of my own mother.
Yeah, I just want to echo that. Like I'm also like, my mom and I are so close, and just like her love for me, like always. And especially in later years, as I've become a little bit more mature, I just regard it as it's just like the most beautiful thing, you know? It's like, it doesn't matter what, like, it doesn't matter how long it takes me to get things together, or I do this or I do that, or I'm, you know, she just loves me, you know? And I'm just like, it just keeps on like completely blowing my mind. And so, you know, also Syama, actually, as both of you were speaking, I was just like, you know what the key word is here is that both of you are just completely absorbed, you know? You're just completely absorbed in the love that you feel for your little ones. And I think that this experience of absorption is just the most valuable thing, because these days, you know, we can be engaged, everyone's busy, right? but there's a difference between being busy and being like really deeply absorbed. And this like mother love is just surely, I mean, from what you two are also confirming now, just the most powerful thing. And I feel like from the male perspective, like your husbands and all the other guys out there who have wives that have become mothers, and you know, just from the male perspective, like what an honor to bear witness to this magical thing taking place, you know, and to somehow or other be there to support that and to like be the foundation of that. It's just wow. Yeah, I'm just like really deeply touched right now.
Yes, please, Syama.
No, I was gonna say that I would love if our little guys could love us as much as you love your mom, the way you both expressed your love for your moms. That's a goal.
I can say I could do a lot better with my mom. After I became a devotee, I got a little bit distant. You know how that thing goes when you become a brahmachari and so on, but I'm still working on that. But she still loves me unconditionally, and we're still really good friends.
Just draw her another picture.
You know what? Why not? My drawing skills have been improving over the years. I wanted a question that we asked the guys, and I'm very interested from the ladies' side, is the courting process. Again, because of the digital media we consume, I don't know what goes on in women's head and how they think they should be approached. Or if they feel like they need to be the one doing the approaching. Like now, there aren't like strict gender roles and so on. But I was curious about that whole, your experience with the courting process. Maybe up to the point where you guys did the questionnaire, because we heard about the questionnaire.
That questionnaire.
I'm curious about the ladies' side of that questionnaire. But just like the courting process and maybe how your own experience of that, and what would you advise your own daughter? Suppose you had a daughter or a young girl who looked up to you, and what they should be looking for in men who are trying to, so to speak, court them, or what sort of wisdom you would offer them.
Syama?
Syama, we were trying to get it out of Jai because we know that story was a little bit more dynamic.
Well, tell me if I'm not giving the best story. But I was thinking, as far as if I had a daughter, I think it's very important for the man role to be very steady and to hold the steadiness of, like this is it for me. Oh, sorry. Every 30 minutes, my camera does that. So, because for me at the beginning, it was kind of like, should I commit to this person? Should I not? Like, is this, it was just a lot of back and forth. And I think for the feminine, that's like a natural experience. And it was the first time in my life where, when I was with Jai, he was just like, he was so totally steady and stable, and he wasn't going anywhere, no matter how crazy I questioned him or the relationship, or he was so steady. And I think that's what eventually won my heart. And it just made it so easy to give my heart to him. I was like, he's trustworthy. Like he's here. So if I had a daughter, if I was giving a suggestion to girls, only give your heart to someone who's really going to cherish and hold it strongly. Because otherwise, what's the point? Like literally, it's just a waste of time. That's my experience.
Yeah, I think that's incredible advice, because I remember once Syama told me, when I was going through one of my previous relationships, she said, give your whole heart, but give it slowly. And to me, that's something that always really stuck with me as something that I want to be able to tell my daughter. Is yes, because I think as women, naturally, we want to give our whole hearts because we have that motherly affection built into our DNA. And so we want to give everything. But you will give your whole heart, but give it slowly, little pieces at a time, to see if he's capable of holding it. Because I think there's a lot of men that when you start to show that you're a little bit emotional, or that you actually need him. Women are afraid to be needy, because a lot of men, if you are a little too needy, then they go call that next girl, or they'll go and run in another direction. So it's slowly give your heart little pieces at a time to see if he can keep showing up in that very steady way and can actually hold all of you. Because if we give our heart too quickly, that's when our heart just gets broken, because all of a sudden we see that, sometimes we think, oh, it's my weakness because I'm too emotional, but actually it's his weakness because he's not able to hold your emotions. He's not able to hold you when you're in that space. And so I feel like, that for me, like, to see that there's a man that is steady, that can keep showing up consistently, that can hold me in all of my emotions and desires, and wherever my mind tends to go, that can hold space for that without running away or getting distracted. I think that that's just huge. And I also think responsiveness is really, really big. I think especially in this world where everything is online and there's dating apps and all of that jazz. Like, I know something that was really like instilled in Vera from his godfather, Arjun, was like, when somebody texts you, respond. Like, don't just leave them hanging. And so I know, especially in the beginning of relationships, I know, like, for something I really love about Vera is like he's so committed to protecting me physically, emotionally, financially, but he's also protecting my mind. Because in the beginning of relationships, we've all experienced, probably, you text somebody and they don't respond. It's been like 2 hours, and now it's been 6 hours, and in your head you're thinking all sorts of things, like what could be happening, and oh my god, and then he's like, oh my god, sorry, my phone broke and I had to go fix it, and you're like, you spent like your entire day like worrying and being like in your mind about things. And so, but forever in a relationship, but especially to begin to practice that in the beginning of relationship, like, be responsive. Like, don't just like play games or this or that. Like, be clear, be steady, and then be responsive. I think that's really, really important for a woman, to protect her mind. But also for men, I'm sure, to protect their minds, because they experience that too.
There's this really nice sort of kind of more technical term in relationship psychology, which is called the turn towards, right? Because we're constantly in relationships, we're making bids, like we're putting ourselves out there, we're saying things, we're doing things, and whatever. And so, I think a big challenge is that it may be that your partner is approaching you in a particular way, or your potential partner, and maybe what they're saying or doing, you're not like really particularly moved or interested, or like, but just for the sake of honoring them, and just for the sake of like letting them know that you're there, just turning towards. I just really like that idea, and Dhyana, and I think that you're also pointing that out. Dhyana, I'm really fascinated by this experience that you and Vera had, because from what he said, you two, you've known each other since you were kids. Like, you've known each other all your lives practically, and from as far as I gather, it was kind of a process. Like, you were kind of like dreaming and saying, yeah, maybe one day we're going to marry each other and all of that, and then but then life kind of went through different phases, and then later you kind of like found each other again. So I'm just interested about your experience of that whole process. Like, how did that evolve, and then when did it become really clear? Like, when did you know that Vera was the right person for you?
I mean, when I was 10 and Vera was 11 when we first met, and it was almost like immediately where I was just like, I love you. Like, I want you to be my husband. We have letters from when we were super young, just like sharing with each other that, he hopes that I'm the one handing out the wedding invitations, and one day we'll wake up and share the same last name. And there's just like this immediate, like, you're my person. And that went on till we were about 15. And so years of just like, we'd see each other every summer at the Rath Yatras. We would email, we would AOL instant message, we would like, snail mail letters, we'd send each other things. And then when I was 15, he came to visit, and he actually ended up kissing my best friend. A little bit of jerk. Totally my heart. And so at that point I was done. And I was like, we stayed friends, through college. Like, we would talk to each other on the phone every once in a while. We would still see each other, but that door was just totally closed. And then it was actually years later, I was 21 when my sister and I were invited to New York City to open a yoga studio. And so we were like, okay, we'll see. So we flew into New York for a weekend just to check out the project. And Veer just happened to be there also just seeing like, is New York somewhere that I want to work? And I remember he was meeting me and Syama for dinner at a restaurant, and he walked in and literally I was like, oh, like my breath was taken away. And like we went to give each other a hug, and we both were just like laughing hysterically, and like we pulled away to look at each other, and he was just laughing, and he said, "I love you." And
Oh my God!
That sounds like the movies, yo.
I mean, not romantic or anything, but what's crazy is like we had seen each other throughout the years. Like I had seen him a few months before, but like there was just something, and I think what it was for the first time there was the possibility that we might live in the same place. Like, so wow, we might actually get to be in a relationship together. And so I think that like that was kind of the extent of the romance, because then it became this whole thing like, are we just trying this because it's what we've always wanted since we were young? I remember like that January, like we had started to date that month, and he called me from India, like, I think I might be a monk. Like, I think that might be my calling. And so I'm just like, what in the world? Like, and so that kind of began the journey of like, what, like, is this meant to be, or is it just like us trying to live some fantasy from when we were kids? And then that was January, and then that Thanksgiving, so that November, we really came to a place, and I think Vera talked about this when it's like, are we going to do this or not? Because like we were definitely at a place where I was like I still want to travel the world. I would just want you to stay here and wait for me. And if I find somebody else, then if I don't, at least you're still here. Like I didn't want to let go of something that could be really good. But through that experience that Vera shared about, we both came to a place of like, yes, like we're taking the next step in our commitment. Mm-hmm. And then I think engagement is like the next step in the commitment. And then I think marriage is the next step in commitment. And then every day we're recommitting to each other. And like Syama shared earlier, it's a relationship that's alive. Like it's not like, oh, we got married, 6 years ago, and so we're still married. It's no, every day we're recommitting to that process that we're on together, to the journey that we're on together. That's kind of how it was for me when we invited.
Cool story. People want to see the movie now. I got a couple more questions for y'all here, just some simple ones, but I'm going to use Robert Brand has a question, and I'm going to use this to kick off into my final questions also. What role or how important is spirituality / religion in relationships, especially marriage? And you've already brought this up in terms about shared values. And so I'm interested, that question, I'll leave it up for a second. That question, and also the questionnaire. I wanted to hear you all's experience of doing that questionnaire that we heard about and the episodes before, the five major questions. And I think Vera said, Dhyana, you and he moved in like separate rooms so that you wouldn't influence each other's answers. And so I'm interested to hear about the experience with the questionnaire. And do you think that's a good thing to do? Like in lieu of like arranged marriages or something like that? You need something that can help you to see that you have shared values before you enter inside. Yeah, so just interested in that.
Syama, do you want to go since I just shared?
Sure. I found it very refreshing to do that. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was also really exciting. Just the process of getting to know someone and going to those like really deep questions. I liked it. And yeah, it will definitely help to show you if this is the person that you should be spending more time with or not.
It seems like a good blend of like, especially like in the beginning of a relationship, if it's very emotional and it's all about a feeling, it helps to kind of ground that, because it's important to feel something, and it's also important for it to be based in something that's lasting when the feeling is not anymore. And I think it also brings up like questions that you maybe wouldn't talk about if you weren't to do that questionnaire. Like what does your sex life look like? What is like all these things that it's like, if you're on completely different pages, you come in with completely different expectations. And you're expecting this person to meet you. But what if their place was like completely a different thing? And so it kind of brings into the arena, like these are things that are important to explore as we enter into relationship. And like, even say, like, if spiritual life is really, really important to you, but it's not important to me, can I at least hold space for you as you go deeper into your spiritual life? You know, because, or like if health and fitness is really, really important to me, but not to you, can you support me going deeper into my health and fitness? So I don't think values have to align completely, but I think to at least know what each other value, to think and consider when that arises in our relationship, am I able to support that person in pursuing that or experiencing that or having that? And if not, then maybe this isn't a relationship to pursue. And so to be also very real about that, genuinely.
How quickly do you guys think should should a new couple be checking out this kind of questionnaire? Should there be? Okay, I'll just leave it at that.
I mean, I think it depends, because I know when I was in my early 20s, I wasn't looking for marriage. Like, that wasn't why I was dating. And that's just kind of our culture right now. I think at a certain age, and for some women, it is much younger. For some people, it's much, much later. But I think when you get to that place of, like, you're not dating just for fun anymore. You're dating because you want to find the person that you're going to be spending your life with. I would do it there, and like when you feel like this is potentially that person, then I don't see why wait.
Right. Yeah, I guess I could have given a little more context. I meant, like, when you come into that relationship, you find that person where you have sort of like relative certainty that it's going to be them. Because, for instance, even now, even amongst us kind of like Western devotees, you could say, this more arranged way of approaching a relationship does still take place. It may still be that there's like a kind of a matchmaking thing that happens and whatever. So, like, for a couple that may not even really know each other much yet, this maybe the questionnaire comes into the picture, and it's like, okay, is it something that, like, you should kind of check out immediately right from the get-go, or should there be a little bit more time feeling each other out?
Like you show up to the first day,
Check.
pull out your purse
with your clipboard.
There you go. Yeah. Here's a pen. I'm going to answer that. You got about 20 minutes.
I mean, I personally think that they should spend time with each other, like a few times, to feel if there's a connection. And to get to know each other in order to know that this is the person that I want to spend my life with. I don't think that it's like your values might align, but there may be no compatibility, and you may not want to spend any more time with this person. So I personally would definitely encourage, like, spend some time with this person, get to know them, see them in different environments, around different people, see how they act. And then once you've experienced that and it can actually feel like, wow, I'm genuinely interested in knowing more about this person as my potential life partner, then I would suggest doing the intake. But I personally wouldn't suggest just like going into a marriage not having like, I actually encourage, like, date this person for some time before getting engaged. Like, spend time with them around different environments. In the same way, like when you take a guru, it's not like it's just this thing. It's you spend time with that person, you listen from them, you are around them in different environments to see how they act in different settings, and just to really assure that, like, yes, this is my teacher. Like, there might be that knowing right away, but you still want to be able to do that research, quote unquote, to have that deeper knowing that's a little more unwavering.
Yeah.
All right.
So just very briefly, so putting your 3 C's kind of on a timeline, perhaps going first for connection, and then compatibility, and then commitment, seeing if the connection is there first.
Totally. Well said.
Nice.
But this is the last question I have, and don't mind the question, but it's an interesting one to me. In the modern postmodern culture, women have inherited a narrative, which is probably largely true. One that is like one of oppression from men, and basically one of oppression from men. And that's the sort of predominating narrative that I think is alive in a lot of the psyches of young men and women today. So when it comes to women choosing a partner, they look at it from this history or this narrative that's kind of playing in the background of their psyches. And they develop a sort of what appears to me, and this is not just true of women, by the way, so let me just say that, but I'm speaking from that perspective because we're talking to you, of entitlement. So when it comes to a partnership, I'm not going to settle for anything less than ... And they can thus tend to develop like unrealistic expectations. And even if there is a guy that may be proper, let's just give the benefit of the doubt in this example, there's a guy that's properly qualified, but no one can meet the expectations of this individual who's thinking like, I will never settle for this unless they have this quality. And I know from like a Vedic dharmic perspective, if you read the Srimad Bhagavatam and it speaks about Sri Dharma, one of the qualities of a chaste wife is that she's satisfied with what the husband can provide. So I'm kind of fusing two different things together here. But basically a culture that has this history of like being abused, being oppressed, having to settle for what is less than they deserve, to now the pendulum swinging kind of really far the other way. And I refuse to settle for anything less than my like perfect 10, whatever that perfect 10 is in my head. Mm-hmm. And so it develops, this sort of entitled culture of unfettered expectations. Now, I'm not saying that you guys have that or anyone we know has that problem, but I think it might be a genuine problem that exists in the ethos today. Mm-hmm. What is a reasonable expectation to look for in a partnership? Can I share one other thing where this is coming from? Yeah. It's coming from a lady who's a marriage counselor. I saw some video, and the video was called something to the effect like woke women are destroying relationships. But it was from a lady who's a marriage counselor. And she shared this really, it's intended to be funny story, but I don't know if people are going to laugh at it. I thought it was funny. The story was basically there was a husband store. And on each of the levels, women can go in and they can select the husband from each level. If they go to the next level, they're not satisfied with the first level, then they can go to the next level. But if they don't make any choice from any of the levels, they have to leave the store. Mm-hmm. So on the first level, it says the men on this level have a job. And she was like, nice, but didn't settle. She went to second level. The men on this level have a job and they're extremely good looking. Okay, that's really nice. Then, but I'm curious what's on the third level. She goes to the third level. They're, extremely good looking. They have a job and they like kids. Oh, that's very, very nice. But she was curious, so she went to the fourth level. On the fourth level, there was something. Fifth level, something. Finally, when she gets to the sixth level, it's like you are visitor 3,497,012,000 visitor. There are no husbands on this level. This level was just here to prove that there's no way to satisfy the expectations of a woman. Mm. Okay, so then there was the wife store across the street from this store, in this story that this is told by this lady. On the first level, she's extremely good looking. Second level, she's extremely good looking and she likes sex. On the third level, she likes sports also. And then it says level 4, 5, and 6 have never been visited, And so the story was there. Now, again, this is coming from a marriage counselor who's been counseling a lot of women over the years, and they said this has been one of the hardest things to counsel women in, is like their expectations. And so the story was kind of formed by her as a sort of joke for that thing. And that may not be representation of the actual facts in its entirety, but it's something that maybe, I don't know what the subjective life of a woman is like, but that may be something that I think could be a thing, especially with the sort of narratives that we inherited in our generations. So back to my question, what is a reasonable expectation in your view of what to be looking for in partnership? I mean, you mentioned like compatibility, connection, and so on. There may be any other things. And I'm saying this question from the perspective of maybe we all need to be looking at like a reasonable expectation. Otherwise, you may never find any proper relationship because of those expectations. So that's where I'm coming from with this question. So that's my questions. I hope I didn't come off as like.
No, I like your story. Good story. Dhyana, do you mind if I share?
Please.
Well, I think first, yeah, no one should ever settle for abuse, whether that's physical or mental or emotional. But for me, I think my desire, really my main desire in relationship is this person willing to continue growing. And as long as this person's willing to continue to grow, whether that's like with communication or spiritual life or career, then I'm happy to go on this ride with you because we're going to keep growing together. So I wouldn't settle for someone who is just kind of not willing to grow, basically. I don't know if that answers the question in a simple.
I mean, it does. It's obviously something that may take some investigation.
Yeah. It's kind of broad, I guess.
Yeah, I'm curious, before you enter into a relationship and you've investigated that sort of thing, what is a sort of healthy criteria? You know, otherwise it's like, well, he's got to be a CEO, he's got to be fine, he's got to have the best family because I can't stand grumpy in-laws. He's got to have this, he's got to have that. Like, what's reasonable?
It probably also changes depending. Like when I got married, I was like 25 or 26, right? So it was a different expectation. I didn't even think about how much money it wasn't even like a thought because I wasn't thinking about that when I was 25, 26. But I imagine as someone gets older, those criteria might get larger and larger. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. You know, just to echo what you said, Syama, my Guru Maharaj, Mahatma Prabhu, was also pointing out when he was here with us 2 weeks ago, he was saying that like for the man, it's really about having that sincere desire to move forward. And if you can see that sincerity is there, then that should be, kind of like, if we're going to talk about universal objective standards here, then like, that sincere desire to want to move forward, and you're kind of being able to see that from the female perspective, that should be, that should be enough. Like, it's also said that it doesn't matter where, I don't know why I'm answering this question now, but anyway, it doesn't matter where you're at right now. It matters where you're going, where you're headed. So just, I appreciate that point.
Yeah, I think he said it better than I did. That's what I meant.
Dhyana, any wisdom on this last little question?
I think two words that come up for me is I really believe that a thriving relationship has the foundation of friendship beneath it, because I feel like that assures that there's genuine care. And the second word is respect. I think that that's really, really important, that both parties genuinely respect each other. And so I think in our culture, there's those kind of stereotypes of like a woman's place and a man's place, and they've become super distorted, and thus women have become a lot more masculine, thinking that that's what makes them equal to man, when actually that's not where our real power lies, is in becoming more masculine. But I think if in relationship you can approach it in place of just genuinely respecting each other and each other's strengths, and supporting each other and pursuing those things. There's some women that just don't like to cook, and that's okay. There's some women who want to have a job, and like, is that okay? How can you, just like that kind of comes back to the values question, like knowing what is what you're stepping into, so that you can really respect this person and their choices, and support each other. I think those are two: friendship and respect.
Beautiful.
Nice. You've given us very nice criteria throughout: connection, compatibility, commitment, friendship, respect. So many nice criteria have been. Well, that's all I got. That's all I got.
This is really like conscious relationships 101 right here, y'all. I just want to say, like, people can come and get a lowdown of both this episode and when Jai and Vera were here, and just be like so well informed just at least in terms of having a foundational understanding. So like, yeah, I'm so grateful to you, Syama and Dhyana, for coming and sharing your wisdom. I just want to ask one final question that Bhishmadev Prabhu asked a little earlier, which is really nice. And I also wanted to know more. Towards conscious communication, would you be able to recommend any resources that you found helpful in terms of developing that, because as you said, also conscious communication is really a skill. It's something that comes about by practice and intention.
There's 2 books. I know, Syama, you loved Nonviolent Communication by Masla Rosenberg. And my husband loves Dear Govinda's or David Wolf's Relationships That Work. And then me and my husband, we also offer a 200-hour training that's really, really focused on communication skills and the art of holding space. And
wow.
So you can contact me for more details on that.
Dhyana, can you just sorry, Syama. Can you just repeat the name of that first book that you said?
Nonviolent Communication.
Okay. Fantastic.
Masla Rosenberg.
Wonderful. Okay, that's great. Wow, I'm so delighted. Thank you so much. I just, my heart is full, and I think that everyone just had such a wonderful time being with us this, well, for me it's evening, for you it's afternoon. So yeah. Jai, any closing?
Yes, I have a few. First of all, where can people get in touch with you? There's Instagram. Where can people get in touch with you? Maybe ladies or gentlemen want to get in touch with you to get more of your wisdom. Where would they go?
I think Instagram is probably the best place. And so
Sister Science?
No, I'd say our personal places. We haven't been as active on the Sister Science page.
Okay.
And so it's Syama.Masla for my sister and Dhyana.Masla for mine.
Cool. And thank you all so much for joining us. I'm really, really grateful. You guys were the first ladies. It just shows how much respect that I have for you, because it was my suggestion. I'm going to take credit for that. I'm going to take full credit for that. And it's been very lovely to have you both on. And maybe in the future we'll have more of you guys on. We definitely want to have this as a repeated theme on the podcast, is conscious relationships, because the vast majority of our community will be in relationships and will be needing such guidance. I hope for those of you guys who joined us live, there were quite a few of you. Thank you so much for joining us live. Make sure you give a follow to the Boudica community to get more of this sort of testimonial style content of how devotional experiences are actually transforming lives. Make sure you give us a follow on Arise, the Honest Man's podcast, on all podcasting platforms like Spotify and Apple. We also have an email. You can go to Arise Heroic Man at gmail.com for anyone who wants to get involved with any of our groups. We're starting to do more online retreats with big names. We're going to even ask some more big names for the year. We have a lot of stuff coming up for you guys. So definitely reach out if you want to be more connected to that. Thank you all so much again for this opportunity and conscience.
Jai. Ladies, you can just stay on. Thank you, Syama. You can just stay on for a sec. We'll just end the live broadcast.
All right, y'all. Later, family.
Hari.
Outside.